Here comes the first parter on the video that I wanted to make about the actual studying in Japan, of basically how it's been going since my arrival. So I want to point out that, of course, across Japan and even here in Tokyo, there are many schools that exist here to teach Japanese to foreigners. They vary a little bit, as some are fast-paced, some are slow-paced, and some are somewhere in the middle, kind of normal-paced. So everything that I'm gonna be talking about is based, of course, on the school that I'm attending, which is a normal-paced one, so I think it's a good example on the whole. But usually these schools work around the same systems, they work around the same books, and it's very similar, I think, the actual way of teaching, more or less. Then, of course, when it comes to studying and when it comes to school, teachers are also a very important part of it. And I can only say until now that the Intercultural Institute of Japan, which is the school that I'm attending, it has been a fantastic experience. It has been the most fun studying experience I've ever had. And like some days when you have some of your favorite teachers, it's really like it's fun to go to school. So if anybody's considering moving to Japan and wants to live in Tokyo, I definitely recommend Intercultural Institute of Japan. So I got a few comments from you guys. A comment from Vira Kusuma, who asks what I want to learn, maybe how to write and read the hiragana, katakana, and kanji. I've already done a video specifically on hiragana and katakana, and the video is about how I managed to learn hiragana and katakana in about 3 days or so total. And it was a system that just worked very, very well for me, apparently. So I really recommend it, even though it can be a little bit time consuming in the actual, when you're actually creating this kind of little puzzle that I used to use. But it's a very, very good exercise. I go more into detail on it on the actual video, so I recommend you watch that video about hiragana and katakana. But when it comes to kanji, it's a little bit different. My personal opinion is that if you're completely unfamiliar with kanjis and how to use them, how to read them, and how they work and what they mean, and in other words, if you don't come from a country that already uses kanjis, I think that kanjis are best learned at the same time, like in the same process as you're actually learning Japanese grammar and just how the Japanese language is constructed, because that makes it much easier to know how to use the kanjis, because as some people of you may know, the Japanese language mixes. It mixes the kanjis, mixes hiragana, it mixes katakana, and also the Western Romaji. Back about 1 to 2 years ago, when I was studying hiragana and katakana, I thought like, alright, you know, I'll try to maybe like get started on kanjis as well before moving to Japan, so I'll be like, I have a nice head start. But because I didn't know anything about the structure of the language and I mean anything else except reading hiragana and katakana, studying kanji on my own was very difficult, and it made no sense. Like I would look up these kanjis, and first of all, it was very different to know what order I should have learned them, because there's so many, and so I started to kind of learn their meanings first of all. And I guess that works. If you want a head start on kanji, you can start learning what they mean, basically. That's a very good thing, because that will help you out in learning kanjis in the long term too. But mostly it was like learning readings was really difficult, because the kanjis are read. You can read them in multiple ways. So I think that if you want to know Japanese, you should learn kanji at the same time that you're learning Japanese, because then at the same time you also learn the actual words, and when you have a basic understanding of Japanese and you know some words, it will be easier also to memorize these readings, I think. Then Godfather Metal wrote, how are you treated by other students in class? Is it easygoing and accepted of you being a foreigner, or is there some level of being the odd man out? Well, I'm definitely not the odd man out. First of all, these language schools are made to teach Japanese to foreigners. So, in other words, 100% of the students in my school comes from outside of Japan. So the only Japanese people in the school are our teachers. On top of that, out of the European countries, Italians and Swedish people are the most dominant in our school. So among the Europeans, I'm actually in the majority. Other than that, I'm being treated great, not just by the teachers, but also from the students, like you were asking. Like, it's a really, really nice community. There are many events to bind everybody together. I don't know of anybody in school who doesn't have a friend. Everybody has their group of friends that they hang out with, and they also know most people maybe from that attends their same level, and you always find a lot of people from your country to bond with if you want to talk about home or whatever. So I mean, at this school I've made so many friends, and it's been a beautiful experience. And the thing is, I think the reason that it's very easy to get along is because most students at the school, we're all here because we want to learn Japanese. So we have this common interest. It's not like when you went in elementary school or high school or so. Here we have everybody wanting to do the same thing. But I do say most people because you can tell that for example, there are some people that you can really see that they're only studying to have a visa in order to be in Japan. So they're utilizing the student visa to just be in school and be able to be in the country. But these people are rather few, but sometimes you really do get that impression. Otherwise, majority of the students at the school are great, they're fun, and it's all like a big family sometimes. It's a really, really great atmosphere. You know, when you see the school trailers or like advertisement photos for the schools or whatever, and everybody's like smiling and happy, but that's actually the real atmosphere of the school. So it's a great place. It would be very helpful to know what books you used. I'm gonna show you in a minute. The process they used to teach you, the type of homework and tests, what was most challenging for you, for example the grammar being so different from English, and talk about the things you found helpful to learning. Maybe explain some things like modifying verb, ending, forms, etc. Also, do you always use polite versus casual? Is learning kanji necessary and helpful? So about the process, first of all, the school has multiple levels, so to speak. So usually most people that come here, most of them start at level 1, but if you've already been studying a lot of basic Japanese in your country, then you can get started from level 2. And then there are some exceptions starting from level 3 and even level 4, but these are people who has already been studying Japanese actively and for a very long time usually. So the process they use to teach you varies a little bit from level to level, but there are some key elements that remains the same all throughout. The first and biggest one probably is the fact that they only speak to you 100% Japanese. They never teach you anything in English. That sounds frightening if you have no experience from such a thing. You think like, what? Like how am I gonna understand anything in the beginning? But it works. By understanding context and using body language and doing things at the right steps in the right order, it somehow just works. It's a system that works. So you will be hearing 100% Japanese from your teacher at all time. Then what we study varies a little bit from level to level. The first level is, of course, obviously just covering a lot of the basics. You learn how to introduce yourself, you learn the weekdays and counting, and then of course you learn the basic grammar. You go through vocabulary, so generally the basic stuff. Also you do some hiragana and katakana exercises. You don't need to know hiragana and katakana before coming to Japan, but they definitely recommend it, and I would totally recommend it too. It would really help out a lot if you already know hiragana and katakana right from the start, and you don't have to worry about that. Then, if I remember correctly, kanji started around maybe 1 month in or something. So the first month, if I remember correctly, we didn't study kanji at all at level 1. And then we started having the kanji lessons. So those are lessons specifically only to learn a few kanjis at a time and a few words that come with them, so that you learn the different readings. And I would say that for somebody who starts at school, my biggest recommendation is that whenever you learn a kanji, start using it. As soon as you learn a kanji, replace the hiragana that you know for that kanji and write the kanji of it, because that will really help you out. Because the thing is, you will be bombarded with so much kanji all the time, and it's overwhelming because it is so much, and it's understandable because there are so many kanjis to go through, and the Japanese kid spends his whole childhood learning those, while we have to basically learn those in well, less than 2 years. So a lot of the time the problem is that you learn the kanjis and then after the tests you forget them. So the only way to actually repeat all of them on a regular basis is to actually write them, is to actually use them at all time. So don't be lazy and write the hiragana words even when you go in level 1. Write the kanji. On level 1, generally, depending on if you're on the level 1 high class or the low class, which has this, the high classes are a slightly faster tempo, but most classes work with a total of 3 books during level 1. The first one is for the first weeks, which is the Survival Japanese, and this is basically the baby steps of Japanese to learn the fundamental basics. So this is Survival in Japanese. You can see the hiragana, you can see the katakana, and then some standard phrases, and it actually has everything written in Romaji, which is not something you're gonna find very often in the future books. But yeah, it's all very, very basic, simple stuff. The typical stuff you would learn the first time you'd learn a language, like "Hi, my name is, I come from this country, I'm this years old," and yada yada, and counting, and yeah, all the basic stuff basically. So this is the books you will have for the first few weeks. After those few weeks, it's time to get serious. So we get to the first book that you will use to learn Japanese grammar. I actually don't have it here because when I started level 2, I sold my level 1 book to a new level 1 student. But it's the Mina no Nihongo, except that this is volume 2. So on the first level we use Mina no Nihongo volume 1, and we go through all of it during the first level. And this is the book that you're going to use to learn all the grammar. And the school works around this book. So like for example, when there will be a test, the test will be very clear that this test is based on, for example, chapter 3, 4, 5 from the book. So you always work around this, and the lessons are revolving around the order that these books also teaches you, to kind of work with them hand in hand. And then lastly on level 1 you have the kanji book, just for the, like I said, for the actual kanji lessons. So these are the most like basic kanjis, the ones that usually one learns first. And so yeah, once again, this is like the first level kanji book. Then on level 2, that's when you get the book I'm actually having. This is the level 2 grammar book, the Mina no Nihongo volume 2. After level 2, there's no more Mina no Nihongo. You officially start at the intermediate level, and so this is the book that we used when we started level 3, and this is the one that we're currently using since I started level 4. As you can see, it looks the same, but this is just the next volume, you could say. Also, the first 300 kanjis have been covered, so since level 3 up until now, we've been using a new kanji book as well, which is this one. For me, I think the most challenging thing in the beginning was probably just vocabulary in general. As you pointed out, the grammar in Japanese is completely different from the English. You're really reversing everything. So of course in the beginning it's a little odd to you know, switch it all around and think, me today to Japan arrived. But actually I think that you get used to that very quickly. After a short while, that wasn't really a big problem. If you struggle with learning kanjis, then definitely kanji is going to be a big problem, because there are so many of them and they are crucial to be able to, if you want to live in Japan, you can't just live on hiragana and katakana, because even when you write, actually writing Japanese only in hiragana without using any kanjis is going to be very, very difficult to read. Because the kanjis makes it much easier for multiple reasons. First of all, when you see a kanji, you immediately know what it means. So it's like photographic memory. In the same sense that when you read English, you are not actually reading one letter at a time. You recognize the words as a whole, and that's why you're reading quickly. That's exactly how you do with kanji. But also, because the Japanese language lacks spaces, everything is just smushed together. The kanjis also usually help you see very clearly where a word begins or ends and stuff like that. So if you only write hiragana using no kanjis, it's going to be frustrating really frustrating to read, because you won't always know where a word begins and a word ends, and if you would yourself put spaces into the sentence, you may actually put the spaces in the wrong places, changing the meaning of the sentence completely. So kanji is very important to master Japanese. The bending of the verbs, meaning if it's current time, past time, potential form or passive form, because of course there's a lot of ways to bend a verb, like I eat, I ate, I've eaten, I'm eating, I've been eaten, I've been forcing to eat, I've forced somebody to eat. In Japanese you bend the one verb word to express all those different things. Interestingly enough, at our school, when we learn Japanese in the beginning, we learn to speak the polite way. The polite way and the casual way of speaking in Japanese can be totally different, especially if you're comparing to keigo, which is like the higher level of politeness, but that's nothing you go through level 1. But still, in level 1 we learn to speak polite, which can be very frustrating. The reason it can be very frustrating is because the polite form of thinking becomes your standard way of thinking in the beginning, because you don't learn casual speaking until the very end of level 1. And so level 2 is actually when you really start using it more, because a lot of the grammar works around the casual form. It's kind of difficult to explain, but I can go more through that in a future episode. So anyway, the problem is that during level 1 you're learning a lot of Japanese and you're learning to talk the polite way. And then you go out and you speak with friends, Japanese friends, some people that you know or whatever, and you don't understand what they're talking about. And also they will think that you're weirdly polite. In fact, ever since I really started to get used to speaking casual form, I almost never go back to the polite form. Because the Japanese, first of all, they don't really expect you to speak politely, especially if they're your friends. They will be speaking casually to you for the most part, so you should speak casually back to them. Or otherwise, if you're speaking politely, for them it will be like you're kind of distancing yourself from them, like you're not putting yourself on the same friendly level. I was also asked more specifically about homework and tests and stuff, and I am gonna get into that more on the next video about studying in Japan. Considering that there's so much to go through, like really, wait a second. I've been saving everything that I've received since the first day of school, and that includes homeworks, tests, test results, well, every single thing that we've had since the level 1 basically. And there's a lot of papers. Because there's so much to tell, and because I want to go more into the specifics of each level and how they have been, so I'm going to do this video parter. So here during part 1, I've been kind of summarized the whole thing as a whole, and from next time on, I'm going to go more into the specifics. And at that time, I will also show you the actual homeworks and the actual tests and what they look like. However, if you have things that you want to know, just leave a message in the comment section below, and I will answer that question on the next video of the series. So this is part 1 of studying Japanese in Japan. Stay tuned for part 2.